Jules.
All three speakers, firstly, thank you so much for wonderful insights and inspiring talks on saving the planet. I've heard that the first step is it's Bible-based, all the Bibles. The second step is spiritual leadership. What's the third step and how do we get there? The third step is how to influence governments. Spiritual leadership will not solve problems. Government leadership will. How do we influence governments?
Who wants to take this question?
I'm happy to say something. So I think one of the things about the fact is that we all of our religious communities are across all governments. So if we band together just on a global basis and we do things, then it's a numbers game. The larger you can make your group in influencing government, the more power you have. I think that if we all make it a platform in all of our religious institutions, our numbers will speak for ourselves. We have the largest, as you pointed out, with that numbers calculation, we have the largest numbers in the world. We just need to make it our central platform, and then numbers will speak to the governments. Governments listen to numbers. If you have the most money, the most numbers, and the most people, they'll listen to you. And we have the most numbers between the three of us. So I think you're right that we do need to. We just need to be united in that effort.
Yeah, I think I'd back up what Debbie's saying in terms of the numbers. That's kind of the people power thing, right? One of the things that, for example, a number of churches have done recently in Aotearoa is to divest from fossil fuel investments, which in itself, in New Zealand, Christians are relatively, we're a really secular country, right? But that's just a really small kind of gesture towards a much bigger problem. But again, with those numbers, imagine if 5.5 billion people or whatever, or even half that, as I said, did something like divest from fossil fuel investments. That's a really significant gesture. It's a huge message to government agencies and policymakers. And so I think, as Debbie said, this is something that we need to work together on, and I think faith leaders need to kind of really take seriously our power, your power, in this situation.
Does that mean that as a group you've stopped using cars they used to?
No, so it's investing in
just the money.
Yeah, and that's it's the first step. Yeah.
Just in a simple addition to what was said, I remember in the part when I was talking about how the human is a guardian of the earth, and before me, Emily said something very similar to that. And then Debbie said something very similar to that, and she actually used the word guardian. So, looking at the similarities, we find that we are similar a lot more than we are different. So if we would capitalize on that, and not just take our differences and then split it around, I think collectively, if we share the same goal, which we do in lots of causes, I think our voice would matter a lot, and that would drive the governments more and in this country especially, it's very easy to convince the government when people are really convinced. So I think it starts by teaching our communities the importance of that, so we can start with our household and get their buy-in as well. So when they are in, they will drive the government to do the mass change. There's a question here? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was just wondering, how can we be ecologically sound, or whatever the word is, if we don't live like do you know who the Amish people are?
Yeah.
They're people who shun modern stuff. They drive in horse and carts, and they, if we don't live like Amish and they don't use electricity, are they environmentally friendly? They've got animal.
The heart and the horses.
They're hard on, yeah, a lot of animals. But I mean, if they were nice to the animals, it'd be. But I mean, that's what I don't understand, because since the 70s, I've been hearing, we gotta save the environment. And nobody, everybody keeps driving cars, flying planes, eating meat by the ton. You know, so what are we gonna, I can hear people, you guys saying something.
I'll give it. So, my initial response was, I think, obviously it needs to be addressed on a whole lot of different levels, individually, kind of societally, government, and so on. But in terms of, most countries, lots of countries in the world have signed up to the Paris Agreement, where we're trying to reduce carbon emissions and also trying to keep the global temperature to 1.5 degrees, hopefully under 2 degrees. And one of the statistics I read recently was that in terms of individual change, it would involve each individual in the world reducing their carbon footprint by 7% a year, which is quite a lot on one level, but actually it's not that much, which might mean, you reduce your meat intake each week, or you drive 2 days a week instead of 5 days a week, or whatever. So there are some really little kind of but significant things that individuals can do, which genuinely make a difference, which would then feed into the much, much broader stream. It's kind of the hummingbird, right? The 7% is the hummingbird.
Story, the hummingbird.
Yeah, and that's kind of, and I think there are little kind of droplets of hope and things that individuals can do to kind of help create a mass movement.
I know some one thing that I used to say the previous generations ruined the world for us. As an old hippie, I used to say that. And now the young people are saying we ruined the world for them. So
I actually totally don't agree with your statement there, which is I believe that. Well, I grew up among the Amish, so I actually know the way they live their lives, but I believe that technology is the solution. I believe that knowledge and science and ingenuity, and we are given this incredible brain and these incredible capabilities. It's just a matter of how we're going to direct that energy. Are we going to direct it to making a bigger profit margin? Or are we going to direct it to making a better green solution for the way we're going to live our lives? Yes, I totally love the hummingbird, and I am a hummingbird. I'm doing those little bits of water and recycling everything and being fanatic, and I feel good about that. But I realize that it's not going to put out the fire. What's going to put out the fire is all of us together as a spiritual unit, leading the world in a path of change. But it's also our incredible ability to problem solve. And all you engineers and mathematicians, that's where your energy has to be directed. And those marketers, you have to teach them to market things differently. We have to sell things differently than we've sold it up to now. We have to sell people the idea that this is going to benefit them and their children, and we're not doing a very good job. We're still selling people that they should consume more.
That's right.
And so the sale has to be different. We have to change the way we market to the world. We have to change how we utilize what we're building and how we make technology. That's what's going to make the difference. It's in our hands. We are totally capable. God gave us these amazing brains. We can utilize technology and have the best world possible, but we have to change the value system that we're selling everybody.
There's one thing. COVID has
Turned off the airplanes. That was a good thing.
it's cleaning the sky.
That's right.
So
You're
much,
absolutely right.
Because and the ocean as well, because we haven't got these great big cruises going around and tumbling off people into places that don't want them, really. But I have a problem, and that is that we've got to treat everybody the same.
Good luck.
And we've got to encourage the places that cannot do anything for themselves. But we are supposed to be we are the guardians. We must be the guardians for try and help these people. And that is a huge, huge ask. But there must be some way, and there will be a way.
The problem is, at least to my knowledge, sorry, I'm terrible here, but the problem is that the Western nations are consuming the vast majority of the resources of the earth. So we think of ourselves as the solution, but the reality is that we're actually the problem. We're the one who's consuming the most stuff. But we also have the capability to change that equation. So I don't actually see us as the models. I actually see the recyclers in Egypt who go through the garbage dumps and pick up the cardboard paper and recycle every single bit of garbage because they're so poor that cardboard is really important in their lifestyles. And those people were given an award, actually, for being the best recyclers in the world. But the reality is that we don't value cardboard in our society. When's the last time you saved a cardboard box instead of had a dresser in your bedroom? I mean, we just don't do that. So it's a different set of values. But poor countries are actually doing a lot more better job of recycling than the rich are.
And I'm sorry to introduce it, but I mean, the Jews and the Arabs and Palestinian is a very sad case. And they have no green space around them or anything anymore. They're not allowed to go into the ocean.
Oh, dear. Okay. This is politics. You made statements there that aren't necessarily true. Yes, the standard of living of Palestinians and their ability to enter Israel is incredibly problematic, but the people who live in Gaza are on the ocean, and they don't have green spaces. That is correct. The people who live in the West Bank do have green spaces. So making a generalization about that is it's not correct information. That by no means am I saying that they don't have problems, but those problems are related to a greater political discussion. And like I say, the people in the Middle East right now are actually it's going to rewrite the politics of the Middle East is the use of water, because water is going to become such an incredibly valued resource that it is going to reconfigure the way everything's done there. You've not seen anything like it. And in Israel today, they had, when I lived there, a massive problem. And what they did was they made huge quantities of desalination plants all across the country. So now they have water. But those desalination plants, ironically enough, run on oil. So it's very problematic. They need to be transferred into a different energy system. But to go back to what you said, you're mixing a political dynamic with a green component. And if you want to talk about it later, I'm more than happy to. It's just not part of this discussion.
The desalinization will lower the sea levels then if everybody desalinizes.
No, the sea level.
Really?
Hi. I was just wondering if you had any thoughts, or three of you, about the connection with ecology and inequality. Particularly, I think more in Western. I'm going to stick with New Zealand for just a second, and just the fact that poverty is quite an all-encompassing thing, including how people think about their environment and whether they're able to even dream for a different kind of reality, because they're focused on the next thing, like the next paycheck, the next meal. And so I'm wondering if you've got some thoughts about that connection as well.
I can start since the mic is in my hand. So, as you stated, actually it's very obvious when we all know that Maslow's hierarchy of needs. When you struggle to fulfill your very basic needs, then you don't expect someone to care about the environment and how green he should be and how he should use an electric car when he doesn't find water and food. Which makes it's a priority in here for us Western countries, but not particularly in all parts of the world. And us knowing that it is a priority, we should actually take action. We have the leadership, or we have the ownership in that sense to, one, help them with the basic needs, two, raise awareness about this upper in the pyramid priorities, which is a priority, and we know it's a priority because we have our basic needs satisfied. Not the case with the entire world. So even the question here, when we talk about Palestinian Israel, when there are bigger problems, we don't expect people to think about how green they should be, right?
Yes, it's an intersectional issue, and I don't think we can ignore that. But I also think that so when we talk about climate justice, we also need to be thinking simultaneously about social justice, and you can't really compartmentalize or silo those issues. They have to be kind of addressed together. We know that lower socioeconomic communities are always the first to feel the impacts of climate change. And so absolutely we need to be able to address those multiple issues from multiple different angles. Yes, I think I'll stop there.
Amir,
Yes.
I don't agree with your last statement that you don't, the people who are chasing their basic needs have to be looked after. I don't think that they are the cause of destroying our planet.
Yep.
They are not wasting food because they don't have to. They're not wasting water because they're using water sparingly.
Yep.
And they're certainly not creating air pollution because they don't have cars and they don't have airplanes and they don't have all the things that create pollution. What is destroying it is what I think you all three have addressed, those consumers who are wasting. And that's the next level. Those are the people, the middle class, the upper middle class, the rich, who are wasting. And if they would reduce their consumption, that would be very healthy for our planet.
So that's what I think the two-pronged approach, which is the religious leaders have the ability to, or they're supposed to be leaders of a set of values in our society, and they have the ability to readjust that set of values. And so that's where the call for all of us comes in, where we can say to our communities, okay, this consumer value system is not a value system we want to pursue. We need to change that. And that's one option. And the other option is that you make it economically beneficial for the capitalist industrial structure to invest in green solutions. So in other words, I think this will happen naturally, and I'm so off topic now, but anyway. I think this will happen naturally because basically nobody's going to be willing to invest in infrastructure that lasts for 25 years that they can't get insured. And no insurer is going to be willing to insure a loan that is going to be for infrastructure that will be obsolete and outlawed when we get to 2 degrees increased in temperature. So I think that the system will actually have to regulate itself because people aren't going to be willing to invest in an infrastructure or a factory that's going to be obsolete that hopefully government's going to legislate against because it's not a good loan to make. That's my theory, for what it's worth.
Thank you. So we'll bring the Q&A to an end.